What is up, everyone? Welcome to our Halloween special live stream. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm 70s Jace. How's it going? That other Jace, the founder guy, he's got the night off. He's gonna have to take some much needed rest. If it's your first time joining us here, please let us know in the chat. Type a message. We would love to welcome you. Thanks for being here and checking us out. To all the familiar faces, I see lots of them in the chat already. Greg, Robert, Mark, excited to see you all here. Thanks for joining us again. And yeah, what is AirWeights? For those of you who don't know who we are, AirWeights is a manufacturer of modular vacuum work holding systems. All of our vacuum tables and accessories are fabricated right here in Colorado. And we are very passionate about making this experience of fabrication more enjoyable and more profitable if you're a business owner. So if you have not already done so and you're joining us tonight or you're watching this after the fact, please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out with doing fun stuff like this, and looking forward to doing a lot more things that'll be interesting and fun for you in the future. Also, if you're interested in our products, what's upcoming, new product releases, please also subscribe to our email list. If you go to the bottom of any web page on our website, there's a little bar there to subscribe. Just type in your email address and you'll get email updates from us when new products come out. You'll be the first to know. And when we're doing interesting stuff like this. It's pretty interesting, I would say. So tonight's show is all about the Halloween special. Obviously, Halloween's coming up on Friday and wanted to have a little bit of fun with that. So here we are. And I'm just going to go through a quick few things about what you can expect for tonight. We're going to be discussing a little bit more about something that we talked about last time, our MFT Vacuum Clamp and some of the off CNC work holding that's available to you from AirWeights. We'll also talk about going through our entire kind of work holding arc, starting with spoilboards and ending at dedicated vacuum fixtures, and kind of what you can expect from each, and just kind of highlight the appropriate approach for each given material. So that'll be fun. We'll do a live Q&A. If at any point during the show you have a question, please type it in the chat. And if you wouldn't mind, just leave it there. Kate will tag that question, and then I'll be answering those questions live as soon as we finish going through our demos. After our Q&A, we'll do a giveaway. Tonight, we'll be giving away a 24 by 24 complete system. Usually, odds are pretty good on these things, so good luck to everyone out there. Hope you get a good win if you're in need. And then we'll wrap up the show, and that'll do it for the evening. So once again, thank you for being here. And as a token of our appreciation for tonight, we are doing a sale for the live show. If you use discount code RIGHTON10, that'll get you 10% off. And yeah, it'll be active through midnight on Halloween. So that's Friday the 31st at midnight Pacific. Give you a little extra time to get in there and get your purchases done. I see one question coming up right away. And yes, Greg, that is the new Redline CNC controller. I am fired up on that thing. I love this thing. We've also got the Redline spindle kit back there. All plug and play. Works awesome. Super excited. Tons of crazy features on there. If anybody has questions on that, feel free to type them in the chat and I can do a little walkthrough or a demo related to menus and features. So let's jump right into our first little bit of content and demonstration here. And that's all around the AirWeights MFT Vacuum Clamp that we've developed in collaboration with VacuDog. VacuDog is a small fitting that fits into worktops that have a multifunction table hole pattern cut in, and it fits into 20 millimeter dog holes. And our clamp works with 96 millimeter on-center spacing for the registration to all work out. So there's a little image of our vacuum clamp on there. And I want to just walk through some of the features. We've gotten a few questions about this thing, and I'd love to just show you a few of the items that are available to you. Some of the things around this product that you should know. All of our pre-orders have been fulfilled. So if you were one of our early adopters that purchased this thing, thank you so much for your business. If you're interested in it, It's available right now. We do have a few in stock, I believe. Kate's probably going to shoot me, but I think that's true. And we also have a new product that we're going to develop sort of around this. Basically, we're going to build out a full kit, and I'll show you a little bit more about that in a minute. But a full system, just like our other products, that would include a vacuum pump and all the other accessories that are common in our systems. This listing that you're seeing right here is just the vacuum clamp. It comes with some plugs, a fitting, and that's pretty much it. So more to come around this. Really excited about what we can do with this thing. It has 2 holes that allow you to mount bench dogs, so it registers on the hole pattern really, really nicely. And it has that grid cut into it, our classic AirWeights signature grid that allows you to lay gasket in there and create little custom zones. It's got 2 ports. It also has edge inlets, and it comes with a fitting. So if you don't have a VacuDog yet, I recommend you get one. But you can also just connect vacuum at either one of those edge ports. Just unscrew the little plug and then thread in a fitting and connect any 5/16 or 8mm vacuum line connected to any sort of vacuum pump. The thing will suck right down. So let's take a little closer look. I'm going to walk you over to our bench over here, and we can take a look at that demo. So bring you around. Good to see you. Here we are. So we're over at this bench. I'm just going to bring you on down. And you can see we've got a worktop here. We've got an MFT pattern machined in, which I did on one of our machines over here. And if I bring you real close, actually, just for a second, you can see that we are working in collaboration with these guys to get our own branded AirWeights black anodized VacuDog, which is going to be super sweet. That'll be part of our eventual complete system that we release around this product. But the way this thing works is I have a pump here that is providing suction to a manifold, and I have a valve that goes down and connects underneath via an air line, and it supplies vacuum to this little fitting that's flush with the surface of the table. If I turn on this pump, air is being sucked through this right now. So if I just cover it up, the sound of the pump will change. And if I place our MFT vacuum clamp, which has a couple bench dogs mounted in there, over this, it'll seal to the table. It's 2-sided, so it sucks itself down to the table, and then it'll suck your workpiece down on top. So one of the benefits of our system is that it has this grid pattern cut into it. And what that means is that if you take a piece of material and you place it over a sealed volume, I'm just covering the other hole with my finger here, you can see that it compresses the gasket underneath this piece of acrylic, and the workpiece is now in contact with the vacuum clamp. What that means is that you're not sitting on top of gasket, you're rigidly in contact between the workpiece, the vacuum clamp, and the worktop, and you get extremely rigid work holding. Being that this is flexible, I could probably burp the seal, but any lateral force, you're never going to get that thing off, and all you have to do is just break the seal to remove the material. So very simple work holding, great for sanding, great for routing, roundovers, any sort of hand processing, and this can actually be used on a CNC as well. So if you didn't want to commit to a full vacuum table, you can take one of these, and many people have a dog hole pattern machined into their wasteboard anyway, and they can set it right on there, get themselves a VacuDog, keep all of the work area clear of all airlines and fittings and all sorts of stuff like that, and have just a clean vacuum clamp and no need for double-sided tape, clamps, screws, any of that. So yeah, that's our MFT clamp. A couple things that I did want to highlight. These bench dogs will come in our eventual system that we have not released yet. We're expecting that to be available as soon as we get our VacuDogs in these custom branded ones. And that system will include an MFT vacuum clamp, hardware to mount bench dogs. There's also 4 mounting positions that you can secure this to the worktop if you wanted it to be. And it'll have a length of gasket material so that you can partition off different sections around these vacuum ports to create custom zones that will allow you to hold smaller geometry or geometry of different shapes, or have 2 different independent zones if you wanted to. There's lots of different ways you could use this. Also interesting is it's very flexible for vertical work holding, so on the edge of a table, if you're doing joinery or something like that. So very portable, very accessible, and pretty darn good price. I think they're on sale now for $79. So really excited about this in the future of the AirWeights MFT Vacuum Clamp. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to post them in the chat. So exciting stuff there. Always exciting to have new products, and looking to get out a more complete system. If you're looking for the vacuum clamp by itself, they're available. If you're looking to get more of a complete system around it, we'll have those available probably starting around mid-December. So exciting stuff there. All right, so that was kind of our first little demo, very similar to what we showed last time. I did just want to show that we're getting those custom VacuDogs in and that we'll have this more built-out system. A lot of people are really interested in sourcing a complete system that has a pump. You can purchase our existing 5 CFM pump for this type of application. All of the tubing and accessories and everything are compatible with VacuDogs, so that works out pretty nicely. And if you are in the market for a vacuum pump, like I said, our 5 CFM pump is a great fit for that product and has capacity to run multiple of them if you wanted to have multiple on a given workbench. So check that out. And yeah, plenty of those in stock and ready to ship if you're looking for a vacuum pump. We've also had some questions lately about adapting our pumps to vacuum bagging applications, which is pretty cool. A lot of people want to be able to have one pump that can serve multiple purposes. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is it's just a simple fitting to make it adaptable. You know, most vacuum bags use that braided tubing similar to, you know, the stuff we use in our fabrication process. So this stuff. And you can connect that with a simple barbed fitting. And then your pump can be used for both vacuum bagging and CNC applications or work holding applications off the CNC. And you know, 3/8 barb fitting with 3/8 braided tubing, and you're pretty much there. The only thing you got to watch out for is a lot of vacuum bagging specific pumps have auto cycling. It's not necessary for our systems, they're continuous duty. But if you did want to have that, you'd have to sort of source that yourself. And there are a few products out there. So yeah, that's the MFT stuff. Check out our 5 CFM pump if you haven't already. And as I mentioned, we are doing a sale. So if you're interested in picking up any of the hardware that we have available during the show, the discount code is right on 10. All right, so let's move on to our next demo. Something that I end up seeing a lot in our customer base is people are very allured by using tile gasket on top of a spoil board. And the reason for that is because it's awesome. It creates this completely universal work holding approach. But there are some limitations with that approach, which are that your material needs to be smooth, it needs to be flat, and it needs to be non-porous. So as an example, a piece of melamine, here's some black melamine. This stuff is smooth, flat, and non-porous. It'll stick right down to that surface, no problem. Other things like aluminum sheet stock, thin aluminum sheet, which is commonly processed on CNC routers, or a piece of plastic, you know, any sort of plastic material. Because the material is so non-porous and the surface is so smooth, the contact with the tile gasket, the contact area is really high. It's a high percentage of the total piece, and that creates a really strong, reliable hold. But a lot of times in woodworking, that's not always the case. So maybe you're not working with pre-finished plywood, you're working with sanded plywood, or you're not working with, you know, a finished piece of walnut or maple. It's just sanded and planed and it's flat, but it's maybe not as smooth and has some grain structure. And all those little grains and things contribute to an aggregate leak that can make it hard to hold smaller and smaller pieces. So for hardwood boards, a lot of time we see people trying to use tile gasket, and there's really a few different other methods that might be just as easy and give you a much better result. So I just want to make sure we direct people in the right direction based on what material and application you have. So let's go through a quick demo of that just to kind of demonstrate what I've got. And I'll bring it down just a second so I can show you the valves on the manifold here. So here's our Onefinity Elite Journeyman with the Redline controller and spindle. And I've got 6 of our 16 by 16 vacuum tables installed on here. There's a host of different manifold banks and things down here that we use for our fabrication process. Don't worry about that so much. But for the most part, what I want to highlight is we've got zone 1 right here, front left, is a 16 by 16 spoilboard with tile gasket applied on top of it. And then zone 2, I have a fixture plate that has 3 independent vacuum zones. And I'm going to use those to show you some of the advantages of vacuum clamping as opposed to downdrafting. So first things first, I've got right now my manifold set up to just activate this front left position that has the tile gasket on it. So I'm going to turn that on, and I'm just going to flip this switch. You might be able to see that it sucks the spoil board down, no problem. And I can feel this thing's active. So, you know, like I said, piece of melamine, something like this, you know, it'll stick right on there, no problem. Piece of plastic material that's nice and smooth and flat, also held on there just fine. Probably benefit from seeing the whole thing, but these things are super rigidly held, and plenty of work holding strength to come over with the CNC, cut all over this thing, route the profile. And again, with tile gasket, if you do have smooth, flat, non-porous materials, you're looking to just barely kiss the surface of the tile gasket and just barely cut through the material so that you get a lot of service life out of your tile gasket. So if I kill the pump, bleed pressure, these things just come right off. Whoop, they're kind of stuck to the MDF. So that's great, but you know, it's not always the case that you have, you know, perfectly smooth, flat, and non-porous material. And if you do have things that are reasonably flat, so like here's a piece of oak, and if you look down this thing, pretty darn flat. And this is a smooth sanded side. It's been planed sanded. And so if I try that demo again, just make this thing squared. This one probably will stick just fine if I can get it to go. So yeah, that thing's on there pretty good. Like I can yank on that thing and it's going to be processed just fine. But there's, you know, sometimes you end up with a piece of oak that looks like this. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's pretty significantly bowed. And that thing is just not going to stick, man. That's not flat enough. And not only that, but it has there's a little hole in it right here. There's like a pretty coarse grain. And so if I put that on here, you know, even if I try to push it down flat, I can just, you know, move it really easily, slide it around. Well, that's not going to work for us. So in a lot of cases, if your flatness error is significant, you're just, you know, tile gasket and a spoil board is not going to work unless you introduce some other gasket material that can help seal off around this warped piece or something that has more grain structure. So if I take this same piece that doesn't stick on the tile gasket and I come over to my fixture plate here, I've got 2 little zones using, you know, I made these with our nested gasket squares. So these are a die cut gasket product that basically just, you know, comes in a nested set like this. There you go, Kate's pulled it up. And it has varying sizes of squares going from 12 to 11, 10, 9, 8, all the way down to 4 is the smallest one. And then you get a little bonus square in the center you can do something with if you want. And very affordable. But basically, you can just take those and stick them on to a fixture plate and drill a hole in the center, and then you have a vacuum clamp. So this is very easy to set up. I did this in, I don't know, 60 seconds probably. So I'm now going to adjust my manifold to just have this second position active. And what that'll allow me to do is demonstrate vacuum clamping. So off with 1, on with 2, and I turn this on. And I'll take that same piece of wood, number 2. I'm just going to stick it on here and cover up those zones. And you hear the pump change. That thing is rigidly held, something that wasn't sticking on tile gasket before now I can really yank on it and it's not going anywhere. So that's a really nice way to account for some warp, is use what we call an onboard gasket approach, where the gasket sits right on top of your fixture and helps take up any variation in your workpiece that may exist. It's also just such a reliable work holding approach. I mean, that thing will not let go, not unless you cut through in the interior of that pocket. But as long as you cut through outside the boundary of that pocket that I showed, you're good to go. So that's one thing. But sometimes your piece of wood is even more bowed than that. So I've got this one, number 3, which is just like total taco on both sides. Like, it's just really not that flat. I should hold a straight edge up to it or something, but you get the idea. It's really warped. And so on the back of that fixture, I've got a little piece of tape covering a little piece of blue tape covering another vacuum port, and I have our adhesive gasket just creating a little loop back there around that hole. That stuff is 1/8 of an inch thick, so in theory you can account for about a little under 1/8 of variation in your workpiece and still get it to reliably clamp. So with this piece on here and this zone still active, I'm just going to peel up that tape and stick this on there, and I think we'll get a nice reliable hold there as well. So there you go. Now that thing's on there, and that's accounting for all the cupping and warp in that piece of oak, and still gives me a reliable hold. I can now come and process and machine however I like. As long as I cut through outside the boundary of that seal, I'm good. So the other thing I should show you is that it doesn't just have to be on that smooth sanded side. I can also flip this guy over, and because that gasket is so compliant and so thick, I can use the side that's a little bit more rough and coarse and stick that thing on there. Turn on my pump again. And it'll suck down that side too. So accounting for coarse grain and deformation in the stock with this onboard approach. And we've got several products to help you get there, just to make sure that you can account for any variation that you have in your workpiece. And again, can't emphasize enough that smooth, flat, non-porous materials are amazing for tile gasket. If you're machining plastics, composites, melamine, that stuff all day long, that'll be your moneymaker. But in a lot of cases with hardwoods, you just don't have as perfect a material to work with. And if that's the case, fixture plates and some onboard gasket is the way to go. We sell onboard gasket in a roll form that's a 16 thick. We sell an adhesive gasket. It's the same stuff that fits into the channels of our vacuum table, but it can also be used on top of a fixture, just the same way that I just demonstrated here. But that roll can be used to replace pre-installed gasket, create custom zones on your vacuum table. It can be used in our pre-cut fixture plates, and it can be used for irregular stock or warped material, just like what I demonstrated right here. So fixture plate is a non-porous material. It's routed to the profile of the vacuum table. It has locating holes and slots, so you can precision locate each time on the vacuum table, take it off, put it back on right in the same position, and you're running that program that you have saved in your controller. So very, very streamlined way to go. Yeah, fixture plate, thanks Kate for pulling that up. Pairs super well with our nested gasket squares, pairs super well with our onboard gasket. And then the other gasket material that we offer for these is called cover gasket. And that's kind of cool because it's a sheet of gasket material that's just continuous, full sheet, no holes in it. You face your fixture plate, stick that stuff down, and then you put an engraving bit in your machine and cut all the gasket positions that you want for your individual parts, and then peel up the excess, and you've got a dedicated fixture. That method works very well for tiny, tiny stuff. So that's kind of what I wanted to show is, if you get stuck using a spoilboard or spoilboard with tile gasket and you just really need to get a project done, having a fixture plate in your arsenal and some gasket material is just such a clean and easy way to go. And I think that once you start doing that sort of approach, it becomes very obvious that it's just a very, very robust way to go, very easy way to go. The other thing I'll say about this is a lot of people struggle with locating. So a fixture plate is also great because you can add features to your fixture plate using your machine to create a corner reference, a fence, put little pins in there, whatever you need to do. You got a 1/4 inch of material there to work with, and even just the slightest, stop or registration piece you can put in there can really save you a lot of time, especially if it's something you can put in and then remove when you don't need it to make sure that the fixture is clear when you're doing some other operation. So I just want to mention that because I think it's something that people sometimes don't think about or overlook. You can cut, grid patterns into them. You can mark them with, graduations, so you know exactly which measurement is what and where you are. All kinds of good stuff. So that's what I wanted to show around flatness, and then downdrafting, and how it's with tile gasket it can be so amazing. But there's also cases where it's not the appropriate approach. Having a fixture plate and some gasket, the appropriate gasket in your arsenal, really can change the game. So yeah, that's all the demos that I wanted to do for tonight. Thanks for sticking with me. And now I think we're just going to jump into our Q&A. So Kate, if you could float a few questions, that'd be wonderful. All right. How accurate would the table be? I notice a 1/10 of a millimeter difference in the items I chamfer. Yeah, good question. So tables, it varies based on size, but at our largest size, we're like ±15 at the very, very max. We won't ship anything that's greater than that. Typically, it's closer to ±5, almost across the board. If you're having a difference in chamfer and you're attributing that to Z height and not locating, which can also be a thing, or sometimes squaring can be a thing. If you're attributing it purely to Z height, the way that you address that is by either facing your spoilboard or fixture plate just minimally to make sure that the Z height that you're cutting with your machine is the Z height that it's expecting, to make sure that you're just basically well calibrated in the Z direction. So what you would do is you take a spoilboard or you take your fixture plate or whatever your work holding approach is, and before you stick down any gasket or do anything, you turn on your vacuum pump and clamp the fixture plate to the top of the vacuum table, and then just take off 5 or 10 thousandths of an inch, just minimally, as minimal as you can, while still maintaining a cut on the entire surface. So if you miss a spot, lower another 5 thou and go again, but just barely skim it, and then apply your gaskets and or different approaches, and that'll just take out any error from the installation or fabrication process that may be there. And the truth is, in a lot of the hobby space, getting there's a very wide range of machine calibrations out there. So I think we do a pretty good job here with our fabrication processes in terms of flatness. If you are having an issue with that, I would recommend using a sacrificial layer and surfacing it minimally to try and take that out. If you're still seeing an error after that, more than likely that's a different issue, whether it's your machine's out of square or just some other machine-related calibration issue. How does the Masso compare to the Redline? Good question. So I can do a quick walkthrough just to, I don't know how well you guys can see this, but I think that the user interface, the Redline, is actually pretty outstanding. I've been using the Massos. We use the Massos every single day. Very familiar interface, but in terms of access to key features, all the Redline stuff is right in your face. It's a really, really clean interface. All the same general features that you'd expect from Masso. So, jogging, incremental jogging, continuous jogging. One of the things that I love about this is that you have macros right there available to you. You fully, any macro that you want to have, you can upload in the store. Up to 12, I think, is the number. Probing and spindle, so you can spindle control right from your screen. You've got a warm-up procedure. One of the things that's really amazing about the new Redline UI is all the animated walkthroughs. So when you're doing something, whether it's a setup procedure or installing new equipment, it'll actually walk you through with visual tutorials of everything, which is just outstanding. You got your tools and tool changers if you have one. all your offsets, an MDI screen. Your run screen gives you a full 3D preview of your code. So this is where I was making some fixture plates, or doing some testing. You can zoom, pan, rotate, ISO view, top view. Really nice feature. I don't know how well you guys can, looks like you can see it okay. You have your overrides, feed rate control and spindle speed, and like as equivalent to a rewind. It's a lot of the same features, I would say, in terms of comparison. The interface and the user experience, especially for the Onefinity ecosystem, is just pretty streamlined. It's very plug and play, and I've really loved it so far. Also excited about some of the stuff that's upcoming with this thing. As a manufacturer of equipment that interfaces with CNCs, some of the compatibility that this will allow with our systems is just going to be top notch. So yeah, I really like it. Jack in the Shop. I thought I opened a link in the 70s. That's the goal, man. That's why we're here. When do the small boards come out with the VacuDogs? I missed that. Well, we released those at the Texas Woodworking Festival in September. And yeah, if you missed it, you should subscribe to our email list. Definitely. That's a good way to get new product announcements. And yeah, it's been a great product so far. People are loving it. We're still building out a complete system around it. So look for that in the coming future. If you don't have a vacuum pump, we'll have a system that includes a 5 CFM and all the tubing and fittings and everything, including our own branded VacuDog that's in collaboration with those guys. So lots to come and more to build around that. But yeah, it's been out since September. Donald, do you have to account for the 1/8 for the profile cuts in software? Yeah, so I think you're referring to when I had that workpiece, with a material of like a little layer of gasket underneath it, where it's not getting sucked down directly into contact with the fixture plate underneath. That's my best guess at what this is referring to. If not, let us know in the chat. I'm happy to answer it another way. But essentially, there's there's two ways to set your Z height, really. I mean, there's an infinite number, but more commonly, there's two. One is from the top of your material down, in which case you should know with your, with a pair of calipers what the thickness of your material is, so that in your software, when you're programming material thickness, you understand when you set your Z at the top of, touch off at the top of the material, you know how far deep, how far you're going to go. If you cut into the fixture plate outside the seal, no big deal. That's why it's there. It's meant to be cut into. And you want to make sure you cut through. When you have an onboard approach like we talked about, you'll actually see that there's a tiny little gap, like the gasket squishes to as far as it can go, but there'll still be a thin layer, a little gap between the bottom of the workpiece and the top of the fixture because the gasket's sitting in there. And in a lot of cases, you can actually cut through and not even touch the fixture if you have your material thickness well calibrated and your Z heights dialed in your program. Another approach would be to go bottom up. So like I always preach this because as somebody who makes vacuum tables, we don't want people to cut into their table. So if you set the Z0 for your programming at the surface of the fixture plate or the bottom of your material, you'd be looking for a minimum Z value of like minus 20 thou or 10 thou or something. And in that case, you could you could have it be positive 10 thou since you have that gasket layer there. But you would just cut through and just barely kiss the fixture, or even just like cut through on the boundary and not even touch the fixture. So kind of depends on how you usually program and what your approach is and how you usually set your Z. In some cases, you won't have access to the fixture if you, like, for example, if you're covering your entire work envelope with a piece of plywood, you don't really have anywhere that's a fixture to touch off on, like a Z0 on the bottom. So you might have to do top down. But yeah, you do need to account for it. And the key is that you account for it under vacuum. If you just set your workpiece there and you don't have the vacuum pump on, you touch off, all your stuff's going to be high. You need to have that thing sucked down, then set your Z value, and then you'll be good to go. All right, Robert. Jace, do you Jace, you suggested that I plug holes in my fixture plate with rubber cord. I think I found some from McMaster. Until I get this, I tried some Frost King weather seal stuffed in the hole. Cool, yeah. Anything that'll seal it up, that's just fine. I mean, you know, as long as it's not going to damage the material. So if there's a compatibility issue material-wise, that could be a thing. But yeah, I think anything that you can use to plug that up, if it's a flat surface and you can tape over it, that's great. I think in your case, you can't. Like that's what I did just here. I had a piece of blue tape just covering the hole. But if it's an inboard approach where the gasket's recessed in and you have a grid pattern, that's not as effective. So yeah, cord stock or filling it with just anything. Even if you could fill it with CA glue, that would probably work. All right, SP on YouTube. Is the Redline controller just a generic grbl controller or specific to Onefinity CNCs? I'd say it's generic. Like it's not, you don't have to run it on a Onefinity. It just pairs really nicely. Bill Rogers. Is there a recommended way to patch a hole in the top of the AirWeight? Yeah, so we've had a lot of questions around this, obviously, because you know it's inevitable people will cut into these things. And the best thing that we've found is CA glue with some filler in it. So you know any sort of like powder, like a plastic powder or something like that, any sort of filler that you can get to just kind of give it some more structure. And then, yeah, just fill it with CA glue. Some people use Starbond. There's a few different varieties out there that people have used, but that's been pretty successful. The other thing to remember is if you do puncture your vacuum table, as long as you don't breach the exterior seal, it's a very addressable issue because, you know, the recommendation is you can use it with direct mount, just clamping workpieces right on the table. But you can also use it with accessory layers like a fixture plate or a spoil board, in which case, if your seal is still continuous around the perimeter, just put down an accessory layer and that hole doesn't really do anything. It just, you know, is one more port at the worst. And it just limits where you can use the grid gasket within the, you know, the AirWeights grid. So, you know, not a huge deal. A lot of people have patched with Starbond. You can also come back and then post machine if you overfill. And you can use the DXF on our website to do that. Just make sure you set all your depths correctly and get the position dialed in. But yeah, you can get a pretty good result just patching holes. All right, Smith. Incredibly quiet pump. How are you making it so quiet? Well, I think this thing probably has some noise cancellation in it, but I can run a pump for you really quick. All the pumps that we have are less than 70 decibels. I think it's like 60 for the 5, 67 for the, I think 67 for the 9, and 69 for the 17. But it's, you know, like we can, if the dust collection's off and we have pumps running in here, you know, production techs can have a conversation over the pump without yelling. It's not that loud. If like, you know, the 9 sounds that, I don't know if you can hear that. And then 17 sounds like this. Gosh, I'd almost venture to say the 17 is quieter, but not on the specs. Anyway, they're quiet. How do we figure out vacuum pump needs? Great question. That's such a great question. So the best way right now is to actually look at our product listings. So the serviceable area you can just figure out by seeing that a 5 is sold with our 24. So anything up to a 24 by 24 area, and that full area can be serviceable by a 5 CFM. You know, so any product from there down in size, 5 CFM can also service 216s, which is a pretty common configuration for certain people. So a lot of stuff available on the low end. And then on the, you know, the 9 CFM will take you up to 24 by 48. And then the 17 CFM will take you up all the way to 48 by 48. So, you know, the key there is that that 17 CFM pump can be a single source connected to a manifold and then provide vacuum to, you know, whatever configuration of individual AirWeights tables you want on your machine. So Yeah, that's kind of the structure. We're working on some educational pieces around this, actually, like a graphic that will just make it really explicit, so you can just see and say, okay, I have this big a machine. That's what pump I need. The other way to do this is more of a modular approach. Some people prefer to have redundancy built into their system. So what I mean by that is someone might buy 4 of our 24 by 24 complete systems that would have 4 individual 5 CFM pumps and run them all independently. And that basically just builds in redundancy so that if one fails, you still have something to work with. Our pumps are extremely reliable, and more people tend towards having a larger single source, but that is an option if uptime is a concern. Randy, any issues out there with the pump overheating and shutting down on you? Yeah, so we've had a few instances of this where if this is happening to you, Randy, please let us know if you're an existing customer. And if you're not, we have had a few instances. I can tell you that if the pump is correctly built from factory, we don't have that issue. So if it is happening significantly or happening often, you should let us know. Even if it's not you, or if it's another customer out there that's having this happen a lot, please reach out to us. We stand behind our products. They have a 1-year warranty. They are continuous duty. So if something's up, let us know and we'll get you taken care of. Do you have large O-rings that fit your grid, or is it always a cut gasket to fit? Such a good question. We're working on it, man. We're working on it. What would make a good accessory board? MDF or 1/4-inch plywood, for example? Yeah, so the best accessories are the ones that we sell, obviously. 1/4-inch MDF will leak. And so if I've mentioned this in previous live streams, but the quality of the MDF that you get is really important, and the density is the key. So the stuff that we buy is called MedX. I would rather you source it yourself rather than us buy it and give it to you, because then you have a direct source for it. If you're into downdrafting and that's a thing for you, find a MedX supplier or buy it on our website. But it works the best out of anything we've tested. And there's a few alternatives that we've sort of qualified, but the performance just doesn't quite match. So MedX has a dealer locator on their website. Check that out. But that's a good way to go. Or just if you'd rather just get it. I mean, we sell it just for that reason, because a lot of people have trouble sourcing it. It's not as widely distributed as some other materials. So that's our go-to. But if you get 48 pound per cubic foot MDF, that'll do you right. If you wanted to make a dedicated fixture, then any sort of sheet plastic material does pretty well. I would probably steer more towards plastics and less towards plywoods, just because plywood has grain structure in the same way that hardwood, there's just, the surface isn't quite as clean. If you were going to go the route of plywood, you might consider pre-finished ply and then coating your holes to get a nice clean surface. But more than likely, some plastic would do you a lot nicer. PCT, ATC. So double refined MDF will work as a 1/4-inch spoil board. More than likely, if you meet the density requirement, and it's really, it just comes down to the density. If it's ultralight or something, it won't work with our system. It works really well for large industrial blower style systems, but for our stuff, the density is the key that helps limit the flow rate to actually allow our lower flow rate pumps to build up that pressure difference. And if you don't have that, if you don't have the right density, it's just going to leak to atmosphere and you won't build up any work holding strength. So really the key is making sure that you have the right density, and the magic number for us is 48 pounds per cubic foot.
All right. That's all the questions we've had tonight. So if anyone has any more questions, feel free to share them in the chat. But we are ready to start the giveaway. If you want to win a 24 by 24 system with the 5 CFM pump, just type in hashtag right on in the chat. And as you're doing that, it looks like we've got another question.
All right. I'm going to jump in on this next question. Is there a way to create two borders on a piece of wood so you can do two-sided cuts? Cut all the way through and still get the boards stay held down? Yeah, great question. Yeah, so as long as you have a continuous flat surface that goes around, the entire board, you're good. That'll work just fine. If you don't, and let's say this is really common in instrument building or something, it's a complex curve, you can, with a thick enough fixture material, you can cut in the negative of the contour and gasket in that, three-dimensional shape, and then it'll still hold it down. So that's a good way to go too. I think I have a speaker problem. I can't hear you, Kate, but that's all good. Nothing new.
Yeah, don't forget to like the videos, you guys, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We definitely want to release a lot more content on YouTube in the new year, a lot more tutorials and informational videos. So keep an eye out for that. And it looks like we still have more people, possibly. We might cap it there if we're ready to draw. Got one more entry.
Thanks, Guilty.
All right, I think I'm gonna draw.
All right, pretty nice number of entries this time.
All right, here we go. Woohoo!
Wade Custins, 3025. Congratulations. You.
All right.
Kate, tell him.
Congratulations, Wade. If you don't mind, just send us an email at info@airweights.com with your full name, shipping address, and phone number, and we'll get you squared away tomorrow morning. Congratulations. I'll type the email in the chat as well.
All right. And since I have no idea what Kate is saying, since I can't hear her, I'm going to jump back in. Are we good on the giveaway?
We're good.
Heck yeah. Right on. All right. Yeah. So like Kate said, just let us know. Wade, reach out. We'll get you taken care of. One of our recent live stream winners, who's I think was here earlier at least, man, done so much cool stuff with our system. I'm so excited about giving away systems because it just, people who really need it, it really shines. So thank you all for attending. Thanks for being here and joining our Halloween special. It was a great time hanging out with you. I hope you learned something. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please do so to our channel and to our email list if you're interested in new product announcements. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Take care.